With the release of the Netflix original movie Death Note came the inevitable uproar from the fans of the manga and anime. Their disappointment with the movie wasn't without justification. There are many scenes within the movie which were poorly written, and plot devices which didn't seem natural and were merely used to force the story forwards. The biggest complaint I hear most is how the movie has changed the characters. Light Yagami was a genius young scholar with a tremendous god complex, who stopped at nothing to become the god of the new world, striking down anyone he saw as a threat. Light Turn, on the other hand, is a Byronic, misguided young man who lets his emotions get the better of him. His character as a whole feels like a cliché, which is the complete antithesis of his original portrayal. The most notable character change is Misa, who in the movie is now called Mia. Both Misa and Mia act as Light's girlfriend. However, that is about where the similarities end. Misa is a sweet, air-headed celebrity who grows deeply infatuated with Light, who does anything he asks her to do in an attempt to get him to love her back. Mia, on the other hand, behaves more like how Light was portrayed in the manga. She is cold, calculating and ruthless, who even blackmails Light Turner into giving her what she wants. I could continue to list the differences between the movie and the anime, but I'm sure many other YouTubers would be doing that. The movie has many flaws, but in all honesty, I didn't think it was that bad. In fact, I did quite enjoy it. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of happiness, and that couldn't be more fitting for this movie. The anime and manga were one of the most successful franchises in the history of modern entertainment. I watched the anime for the very first time many years ago, and to this day it still stands as one of the best series I've ever watched, including live action series. So indirectly compared to the anime and manga, the movie is terrible, but if you were to judge it as a movie alone, I'd say it's decent. Light Turner is not nearly as interesting as Light Yagami, but his character isn't bad, it's just another interpretation. The other thing to keep in mind is that although Light Yagami was Kira in the anime and manga, I saw Mia taking that role in the film, making her the true Kira. Moving forwards, I'd like to analyse the characters from both the Death Note anime and movie. I'll be using the cognitive functions to type each character and diagnose them with any personality or mental disorders based on the DCM. Starting off, we have Light Yagami, the main character of the anime and manga. Light in this adaptation is an INTJ. This means that its first function is introverted intuition, or NI. NI is a perceiving function, which is focused on the subjective impression of various possibilities. What this means is that characters with NI as their first function will perceive the world as a multitude of ideas that can be arranged together in a certain way to secure a particular outcome. I like to think of NI users as aggressive chess players, observing the pieces on the board, calculating what actions to take on their upcoming turns, while also trying to work out what moves his or her opponent makes. This characteristic is one of the main ingredients which makes the plot of Death Note so interesting. Watching Light as he carefully tiptoes around L whilst making his dream a reality. Light's second function is extroverted thinking, also known as TE. TE is a judging function, which objectively categorises knowledge an individual has gained. Those with TE are often realistic and use their intelligence to make sure their actions are logically sound. TE and NI blend well together, since ENTJs and INTJs are able to craft brilliant, well thought out plans which are realistic and achievable. This is why characters with these personality types often make great villains. Light's third function is introverted feeling, or FI. FI is a judging function which subjectively prioritises internal values. Those who have FI often feel strongly about certain issues, and together with TE will often try to make changes in the world to try and appease these internal views. A person with TE and FI is a person who thinks objectively and feels subjectively. This is the original and underlying motivation for Light's character, feeling passionate about changing the world for the better and eliminating anyone who he regarded as scum. His last function is extroverted sensing, which is what led to Light's downfall. Extroverted sensing, or SC, is a perceiving function which objectively assesses whatever stimulus is around the individual. SC allows individuals to stay focused on the present, helping them stay grounded, as opposed to NI, which rewards subjective thought patterns. Thus, individuals with inferior SC may only use the SC to gather information around them to confirm any thoughts and biases the individual has come up with. Similarly, if neglected enough, they may overlook important details which could be right in front of them. By the end of the story, Light's ego had caused him to rely too much on his grand plan to beat Nier, without creating a backup plan like how he used to before Elder's demise, i.e. when Light was more careful and cautious. Light suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, which is what contributes to his large ego and god complex. Contrary to popular belief, I do not diagnose Light as a psychopath. There are many moments where he has been shown to care for his family and having a protective brotherly instinct towards his sister. This suggests that Light doesn't lack empathy entirely, rather he suppresses it due to his NPD, and rather manipulates people for his own agenda. Light Turner by comparison is an ISFP, meaning that he shares the same functions as Light Yagami, but in a nearly a reverse order. An ISFP's first function is FI. Similarly to his original portrayal, Light has strong views about the world around him, wanting to change the world subjectively for the better. His FI is so strong that he would get into fights around him either at school with his father. This is in contrast to the original Light, who would suppress his own views around others to guarantee that his identity would remain a secret. Light Turner's second function is SE. Unlike Yagami, Turner is very reactive to his environment and lives primarily in the moment instead of crafting long thought out plans. His hedonistic attitude is what led him to put Mia's name in the death note, behaving impulsively rather than logically. His third function is NI. Turner does utilise his NI throughout the film, and it seems like this function improves as the story progresses. The last scene in the hospital is a great demonstration of how Light uses NI. Sadly, a lack of build up to this scene made the whole thing feel a bit out of character. His last function is TE. In stark contrast to Yagami, Light doesn't seem to use logic all that much when making decisions in the film. He mostly makes decisions based on his emotions. The scene where he openly uses his death note in the gym at his school, and going on to show it off to someone almost instantly after they inquire about it, shows how little Light is thinking about the situation at hand, and it's the main reason why he gets caught so easily. Finally, Light Turner doesn't have any personality disorders which are obvious. He's obviously troubled by his mother's murder, but other than that he seems relatively normal. Next we have L, the world's greatest detective. Lakeith Stanfield did a great portrayal of the character and was arguably the best actor in the film. Even though L in the film did behave more and more emotional and impulsive towards the end, this wasn't Lakeith's fault, but rather that of the writers. L is an INTP, which is often described as the parallel type to the INTJ, a fitting match for the story of Death Note. In fact, when I think of INTJs and INTPs, Light and L are often the first characters which come to mind as a caricature for these personality types. L's first function is introverted thinking, or TI, a judging function which subjectively categorises the knowledge they have gained. Those with introverted thinking like using facts as ingredients to create new theories and to analyse any new information given to them. This is L's most defining trait, analysing all the data on the Kira investigation and adding it all together to form probable outcomes as to who Kira's identity is. His second function is extroverted intuition, or NE, a receiving function which objectively looks at all the ideas and possibilities at any given situation. L uses his NE to create new hypotheses regarding the Kira investigation, a process you see him continuously do throughout the anime. When combined with this TI, L will come up with various possibilities and then analyses them logically to assess their probability and likelihood of being true. This will lead him to quickly create and dismiss various ideas. His third function is SI, a perceiving function which subjectively assesses the stimuli around the individual. L primarily uses his SI to take note of information going on around him he sees as important to his investigation. He also uses SI to recall said information to further extend upon his theories and hypotheses. Like many INTPs, however, Light doesn't seem to regard his own body and health as one of these important things to take note of. Thus, he has an unkempt appearance, has a poor diet, and lacks a sleep schedule. His last function is extroverted feeling, a perceiving function which objectively prioritises ethical standards rather than individual values. L is on the side of the law because he believes that his side is justice, even though he does not personally care much for the aspect of justice itself. Those with high extroverted feeling are often aware of other people's emotional states and adapt their own behaviour to fit in with the group. Since FE is his last function, it seems L can accurately assess other people's emotions, but struggles to express his own emotions, which creates a lot of awkward and tense moments with those around him. I believe L may have autism, a condition where individuals have difficulty communicating to others and think in abstract ways. Some people with autism may develop obsessive or repetitive behaviour. This may be why L becomes obsessed with proving that Light is Kira, and refuses to accept otherwise. L in both the anime and movie are pretty much the same, and therefore I type them the same. The only difference is, L in the anime and manga may also suffer from schizoid personality disorder, a disorder which symptoms include excessive withdrawal, a need to be alone, a sense of superiority, and self-sufficiency and depersonalization. This is why L in the anime remains far more detached and cool-headed than he does in the film. In fact, L may just have an extreme form of SPD rather than being autistic, but I'll let you decide that. So Ryuk is an interesting character and a fan favourite since he adds many light-hearted moments to the series despite being a Shinigami. I won't be analysing the Netflix portrayal of Ryuk since this version had very little screen time and just behaved like a generic demon. Ryuk is a psychopath who looks at the human world without empathy and just looks at their actions with amusement. His aloof, laid-back nature is what adds such dynamic contrast to the rest of the cast since every other character is so intense. Ryuk is an ENTP, the sibling type to L. While INTPs are focused on creating a logical framework of ideas, ENTPs are focused upon creating logically falsifiable but not deeply thought out ideas. Thus, whilst an INTP has many ideas analysed to be as accurate as possible, ENTPs have even more ideas but not analysed nearly as much. An ENTP's first function is NE, which is what causes Ryuk to become bored so easily. NE craves new ideas and possibilities, so for a person like Ryuk, who has apparently lived since the world began, the amount of new possibilities must seem limited, hence why he drops the Death Note in the human world to give him some amusement. This couples with the second function, TI, which allows him to analyse the battle of wits between Light and L. You can see Ryuk making his own observations and conclusions about what is happening, indicating that he enjoys trying to work things out, but generally he gets corrected by Light, who points out something he has missed. His third function is FE. Ryuk doesn't seem to possess many personal values, instead looks at the emotional state of the world objectively. He seems quite expressive and uses emotional manipulation as several characters, often acting as the devil's advocate. His last function is SI. As stated before, Ryuk seems to miss important details in the present, which causes him to overlook certain variables. On top of this, Ryuk's boredom threshold is very low, causing him to become restless and irritable unless Light or L does something to advance the plot. Now Misa is an ENFP with a similar type to Ryuk, who has a codependent relationship with Light, not dissimilar to that of Harley Quinn's relationship with the Joker. Watch my Joker analysis if you haven't seen that video already. Shameless self-promotion aside, Misa's first function is extroverted intuition, meaning she primarily sees the world based on its many possibilities. This is what contributes to her bubbly, spontaneous behaviour. Her NE also allowed her to make some very smart and interesting decisions when we first meet her. Her second function is FI. Similarly to Light, Misa also wants to cleanse the world of darkness, values which are formed based on her tragedies she has endured. This is also what drives her admiration and infatuation with Kira, since Light is actively changing the world in the same way she wants the world to change. In combination with her NE, Misa comes up with various ideas and possibilities to help Kira and please the man she loves, unlike L, who uses NE to come up with varying hypotheses for his TI to analyse. Misa's third function is TE. Before she met Light, Misa seemed like a pretty intelligent character, almost outwitting both Light and L at one point. However, Misa doesn't seem to use her TE all that much after meeting Light, and generally just follows whatever orders he gives her, rather than making her own decisions. Her last function is SI, which contributes towards her downfall in a similar manner to Light's. Those with inferior SI may let their NE govern their outlook on life too strongly, and thus may develop an unrealistic view of the world. Misa is living in a fantasy, where Light is a hero with no flaws, who is madly in love with her, but hiding his emotions. This is what allows Light to manipulate her so easily. Mia from the Netflix movie, on the other hand, is an INTJ, the same personality type as Light from the anime and manga. This is what solidifies her as the true Kira in that adaptation in my eyes. Her character is so different from Misa that there isn't much point comparing them. Her first function is NI. When Light first shows her the Death Note, she immediately starts thinking about what it could be used for. She manipulates Light throughout the movie into getting what she wants, whether it be through seduction, going behind his back and acting on her own accord, or threatening to end his life. Mia's second function is TE. Similarly to Yagami, Mia remains grounded in her logical decisions and doesn't allow emotions to cloud her judgment. She ignores any sense of morality when using the Death Note and rationalises her behaviour with the consequentialist belief that the end justifies the means. Her third function is FI. Once again, similarly to both Light's and Misa, Mia is passionate about changing the world according to her values. Her last function is SE. Unlike Yagami, Misa seems pretty reactive to her environment, as seen when she stands up to the bully at the beginning of the movie, or visibly freaks out when she finds out Light put her name in the Death Note. Although very similar to Light Yagami, she does not seem to exhibit any signs of having narcissistic personality disorder, but ironically does seem to exhibit psychopathic behaviour. Mia shows no sign of distress when she finds out Light has the ability to kill people, and only becomes excited to use it again. She has no second thoughts about blackmailing Light to her own agenda, or doesn't seem to care about ending his life. Light in the anime completely freaks out in the first episode when he tests the Death Note and actually kills someone. In fact, becoming the god of the new world is just part of him rationalising that he killed someone. Mia doesn't need to rationalise anything, and seems to hold no empathy for anyone around her. Similarly to L, I type Light's father in both the anime and the film as the same type, ISTJ. The only main real difference is that Chief Yagami from the anime and manga is a lot more likeable than his Netflix counterpart. How they judge and perceive the world, however, seems to be the same, and ISTJ's first function is introverted sensing, or SI. Since this is his dominant function, the Chief's primary mode of thinking is by noting details in a subjective sense of the world around him. This is a characteristic which is very valuable for those who are, or want to become a detective, both in fiction and the real world. This is because strong SI allows people to record any information they see as important, meaningful, or relevant, and being able to recall that information at any given time, which is why it can be utilised so efficiently on a crime scene. While NI is focused towards looking towards the future, SI is focused towards looking back on the past, and thus ISTJs and ISFJs tend to hold tradition highly and are prone to act sentimental towards things or people of value. The chief's second function is TE, which allows him to make factual assumptions about the task at hand and command his officers in an efficient manner. His third function is introverted feeling. The chief has a strong sense of honour and responsibility, which is culminated from both his FI and SI. He finds Kira's acts of vigilantism disgraceful, as his approach disregards the law. But while he persistently tries to take down Kira, personal values may sometimes put limits on certain procedures, such as when L closely monitors Light for the first time, or better yet when L locks Light in solitary confinement. The chief's last function is NE. One of the chief's main flaws is that he has trouble coming up with new ideas and accepting new possibilities, most notably, outright denying the possibility that his son is Kira. It isn't until halfway in the series that he finally begins to accept such an idea. Overall though, it seems that his NE has developed quite a bit since working directly with L. Now looking at a character which didn't appear at all in the Netflix movie, let's discuss Mello. Admittedly, I didn't like Mello and Nier's characters the first time I watched Death Note, but by the second time I thought they were welcome additions to the story, since they changed the dynamic in an interesting way. Mello seems to have an inferiority complex, which seems to have been caused by living in Nier's shadow for most of his life. His inferiority complex has led him to make very rash and morally questionable decisions, such as using the Death Note itself for his own agenda and acting independently from the US government. Mello is an ESTP, the mirror type of Chief Yagami. What I mean by this is that ESTPs and ISTJs have opposite functions but in the same order. So while an ISTJ's function order goes SI, TE, FI, NE, the ESTP's order goes SE, TI, FE, NI. Mello's first function, SE, is what makes him arguably the most proactive character in the series. Most of the decisions he makes are not subtle and often make a big immediate impact. This is because SE is focused entirely on the present rather than the past or the future. Mello seems to lack patience and prefers to act whenever possible to achieve results. This isn't to say Mello acts without reason. His second function is TI, which allows him to analyse the data he has and make theories regarding how to take down Kira. While L used his TI to analyse possibilities and ideas, Mello would analyse whatever was going on around him at the present moment. The combination of TI and SC allowed Mello and other ESTPs or ISTPs to be very focused on their environment while evaluating and judging it at the same time. His third function is FE, which he doesn't seem to use actively that much. Those with FE are often very in tune with the emotions and people around them, and thus are more immediately affected than those with FI. Mello seems to be pretty sensitive emotionally, and tends to overreact whenever his inferiority complex kicks in. This is a sign that he has underdeveloped FE. It could also be argued that when Mello orchestrates the kidnapping of Sayu, he was using emotional manipulation to get what he wants, indicating the use of FE. Similarly to how L uses emotional manipulation on Kira and Misa to get what he wants. His last function is NI. Although Mello is great at coming up with plans and moving them forwards, he often tends to fail to see the big picture and allows his ego to get in the way. It isn't until the end of the story that he finally sees that he needs to work with Nier in order to efficiently take down Kira. Since we are near the end of the video, let's finish with Nier. Nier is almost an XP of L, both characters being a strange, aloof genius who carefully tries to outwit Light or Kira. Nier may also have Asperger's or schizoid personality disorder, but unlike L, he is far more narcissistic and displays more psychopathic tendencies. Nier is an INTJ, the same type as Light, meaning their methods for taking each other down are the same. While L would test various possibilities to see how Kira or Light would react and then analyse the results, Nier would create a plan specifically to get the results he wanted, which allows him to finally beat Light. Nier's first function, NI, allows him to carefully come up with plans to corner Light and prove that he is Kira. On top of this, he comes up with the counter for whatever plans Light may have come up with to prevent him from doing what he wants. His second function, TE, allows him to see the factual evidence in front of him immediately and use that to his advantage. Instead of internally thinking and analysing the probability of Light being Kira, Nier actively asks to speak to the task force and gain confirmation from someone on the inside. His third function, FI, is what drives him to beat Light and take L's place. He admits that he does not care for justice, and it is just a game to him, but as the plot goes on, Nier begins to take the case a lot more seriously, especially after Mello's death. And his last function is SE. Arguably Nier is the least proactive out of the Death Note characters. From the moment he is introduced, he remains in his hideout, hiding behind a screen and acting behind the scenes to the very end of the story when he finally meets Light face to face. I have many more videos on this topic where I analyse characters such as the Fallout 4 characters or the Undertale characters, and I plan to make many more in the future, so make sure you subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.